Finn didn't get any great joy from sneaking out of his house at 1 a.m. His parents were pretty good about giving him his privacy and space. The two things they asked in return were honesty and trust. He broke their trust by opening his second-story window and shimmying down the fire rope installed for emergencies. The only justification for his actions was that this qualified as an emergency, though he'd never be able to explain it to them. If caught, he'd be grounded for eternity. He quietly walked the Hawk Tracer BMX out to the sidewalk. Then he climbed onto the bike and took off down the sidewalk. It was the most beautiful bike he'd ever owned. Silver and black frame, monkey bars, alloy levers, and it ripped along, teasing him into trying a few tricks, such as jumping curbs and popping wheelies, which he resisted because of the dark. He kept to the residential streets as much as possible, avoiding the busier avenues, afraid that a policeman would stop and question a kid on a bike. It was a long ride. He settled into a rhythm of slowing at stop signs, looking in all directions for headlights, and then crossing, but never fully stopping. The residential streets were totally quiet and empty of cars. Soon, he had 2 miles behind him, then 3. He crossed 2 major avenues, finding his way into Orlando's older neighborhoods, one connecting to another. Finally, the residential gave way to the commercial. He flew past shuttered buildings, businesses of every kind, psychic readings, dry cleaning, a yarn store, a bakery, dozens of restaurants, coffee shops, dog grooming, curtains and drapes, lamps, a half-dozen banks, and a copy shop. He spotted the red tile roof and stucco walls of a building he'd been to once before, Amanda's house. It had a tall, stained glass window in the front, just below a squared-off steepy that showed a white angel against a blue background. Maybe it had once been a church. He pulled the bike around back to an apron of cracked blacktop that had once been a parking lot. He locked the BMX to a metal railing and then circled the building, wondering, what now? He'd never been inside Amanda's house before, though he assumed from what she'd said that she and Jez had separate bedrooms. Each ground-level window had a grid of heavy wrought iron bars on the outside to protect against burglars. It gave Finn a ladder to climb. He went from the railing to the bars on a window, grabbed hold of an iron pipe running from the gutters, threw a knee up over the edge, and pulled himself onto the Spanish tile roof. He walked gingerly, for the first tile he stepped on cracked. A shade was pulled down, blocking the first window he reached. Finn edged around the corner to another window with its shade up. There was a small solar panel propped on the window ledge. It was dark behind the glass. Finn cupped his hand to the glass and was able to make out an empty bed. There were no posters on the wall, no artwork at all. The place looked dumpy and unlived in. He took this to be Jez's room. There were no bars across the second-story windows, so he tried to open one, but it didn't budge. He moved it along slowly. The roof was steeply pitched. The Spanish tile felt smooth and slippery beneath his sneaker. The last window on this side had its shade up, but gauzy curtains were pulled across it. It also had the same kind of solar panel outside, this one taped to the jamb. He tried cupping his eyes with his hands to the glass, but could barely see anything in the dark room. What he did see was a pair of sneakers on the floor, Amanda's black high tops. Convinced he had the right room, he tapped lightly on the pane, waited, tapped again, all at once. Black objects fled from the overhead eaves. Bats. Finn instinctively jumped back, slipped, and fell face first to the curved roof tile. He reached out and clawed his fingertips into the windowsill. Just then, the curtain sprung back, and there was Amanda looking out the rain-stained window at him, her face a sleepy, twisted knot of curiosity. She wore a spaghetti-strap top and plaid pajama bottoms. Finn's fingers slipped an inch, leaving scratch marks on the sill. Another half an inch, and he was gone. Amanda threw open the window and grabbed both of his wrists. They locked grips. She put her feet to the wall and heaved and pulled. Finn grabbed the inside of the sill, got his knees under him, and with her help climbed inside.
Sorry.
The front door is easier. Or you could have called.
Shh.
Why? I'm the only one here.
What?
Amanda switched on the light. It was a dim, compact fluorescent bulb hanging from a wire that led to a car battery. A second wire led from the battery to the window and the solar panel beyond. As Finn took all this in, Amanda spoke. But unlike the Amanda he knew, she wasn't telling the truth.
Our mother, my mother, her sister, down in Boca, needed her. She had to leave suddenly. Left me by myself.
All alone?
I'm a big girl.
You're 14. My parents never leave me alone overnight.
He paused as their situation sank in.
You're alone? We're alone.
He spoke in his normal voice. He took in the light, the battery, and the solar panel outside the window. He saw no light in the hallway. He'd see no other lights from the street. She went to a closet and put on a robe. She sat down on the edge of her bed and pointed to a rickety chair at the desk. Finn moved the chair closer.
It's 2 in the morning. Just for the record.
The air from the open window was cool. The curtains danced at the sides. Amanda stood and closed the window.
Whoa! Check it out.
It took Finn a moment to spot the bat hanging upside down from the eaves above the window. It was big, though Finn didn't want to be scared by a bat. It had a blue iridescence to its black wings, tucked at its sides. It looked dangerous.
Creepy.
There are a lot of bats here. I think they live in the attic, though that's the biggest one I've seen by far. They make the weirdest sounds at night. Sometimes I have trouble sleeping.
She pulled the curtains, shuddered, and sat back down on the bed.
Flying rodents. Never been a big fan. I'm not one of those guys with rats for pets. No thanks.
I've never had a pet.
Seriously?
We moved a lot.
She blushed and looked away. He wondered what that was about.
You remember Wayne?
Her eyes went wide.
I thought he disappeared.
Yeah, so did I.
Finn went on to explain his encounter with Wayne, and then the meeting that had followed. Amanda interrupted several times, clarifying the connection between Jez's disappearance, her being seen at the Magic Kingdom, and the possibility that the DHI server had been cloned. She sat for several long minutes with her head in her hands, her hair cascading over her forearms and forming a veil she hid behind.
I'm going to trust you.
Finn felt a shiver. He looked up at the bat, a long, dark silhouette seen through the translucent curtains.
Okay.
I can trust you, right?
Right.
He didn't say anything, but she had every cell in his body focused on her.
Most people, they would never believe it. And that's a good thing. It's better if people don't believe it. It's safer for everyone. There's some saying about hiding behind ignorance, isn't there? There should be if there isn't. Am I rambling?
Sort of.
Nervous.
It's just me.
She came up from under the veil of her hair and met Finn's eyes. Hers were close to tears, shining like marbles.
You, of all people, might understand. You and the others. I can't think of anyone else. Maybe you won't believe, and that's okay. I won't be mad or anything.
I can't believe it if I never hear what it is.
Jez and I are different.
I know that. You're very different.
No, I don't mean from each other. I think it might be better if you just listen. No offense or anything, but this is kind of hard to explain.
He nodded, thinking he shouldn't speak. She saw this and giggled, covered her mouth, looked as if she might cry. When she spoke, it was very softly.
I guess the only way to explain this is just to say it. We're fairlies.
You mean fairies?
No, fairlies. As in, fairly human. It was supposedly a joke a long, long time ago, but it stuck. Fairlies. Go figure. We're not witches or fairies, or anything like that. We're just kids with unusual abilities.
Such as...
I'm not allowed to say. Sorry, rules, you know.
You and Jez are sisters?
Sort of, I guess. Not exactly. We're both orphans. All fairlies are orphans. My parents drowned. Jez's went on this trip to South America and never came back. They think pirates, real pirates, got them. She and I were raised in the same foster home. That's why I call her my sister. Fairlies display certain qualities at a very young age. Spoonbenders, mind readers, clairvoyance. There was a boy who could set fire to things by just looking at them. Very strange, but real. Jez dreamed the trouble here in the parks. This was way before you guys were hired to be the models for the DHIs. She and I, we kind of ran away. Not recommended, I might add.
Finn understood the solar panels then. There were no parents. Jez and Amanda lived by themselves.
The day we got here, Maleficent put a spell on Jez, or bewitched her or something. Jez didn't even recognize me. Then you and the DHIs came along. Somehow, you released her right before Maleficent was captured. I wanted to go back after that, to the foster home. But Jez had more dreams. She keeps them in a diary, a journal.
So she can dream the future?
Believe whatever you want to or not. I believe the Overtakers have taken Jez prisoner to prevent her from interfering with whatever they have planned.
Finn's skin crawled. He felt slightly sick to his stomach. She stared at Finn long and hard, her eyes fiery pinpricks.
I can't expect you to believe any of this. Asking that is probably too much. I hope you do someday. I hope this makes us better friends, not worse. I'm trusting you in ways I've never trusted anyone.
She paused. Her breathing was labored, her skin flushed. Finn felt as if he might explode with anticipation.
And your powers?
Sorry, can't say. Not now. Not yet, anyway.
You and Jez are squatting here. In this house, this church, whatever it once was. The solar power.
You're not going to tell.
I've got bigger secrets than this, believe me.
It was closed up, abandoned. We always enter by the back. We're very careful. Only once have I used the front door, and that's when you and your mother dropped me off here. I wasn't even sure it could open.
And the neighbors?
What neighbors? It's doors and stuff. No one's ever said anything. It's only been a couple of months. The water's on. It's cold. No hot water, but it works. We shower at school. The toilets work.
This is way cool.
It's not great, but it's what was available. We had to think fast.
Don't Fairleys have money?
If you're going to tease me, we're done here.
Can't take a joke.
Not about that. And yes, I have an after-school job. But right now, I think we both could use some sleep.
No, we can't sleep. Wayne says if any of us, the DHIs, go to sleep, we might get trapped the way Maybeck did last time. He said the only way to protect ourselves is to find Jez and get her to safety, and then find and crash the second server. We need your help. That is, only if you want to.
Of course I want to.
He liked the idea of her being involved. She was the most unusual girl he'd ever met. He wondered what powers she might have, and why she wouldn't tell him about them.
You were going to join us, and I am.
Yeah, well, my computer access is through our local library. A little late for that.
So, what about her journal? Can I see it? Maybe she left clues or something. We don't know what we're looking for, and it's a huge part. We're all real tired, and we haven't started. We don't know for sure she's in the animal kingdom. Wayne thinks so, but no one knows for sure. I don't know if you can help, but...
Absolutely. I want to help if I can.
She took off, out the bedroom and down the dark hall. A light popped on in the next room, casting a trapezoid of light against the far wall. Where a mural of a woman's stern face had been painted, she'd seemed to be looking at Finn. He ducked back into Amanda's room. She returned clutching a leather journal. Reluctantly, she passed it to Finn.
This is private stuff, remember?
Finn nodded and flipped through the pages. The diary was filled with writing, drawings, sketches, clippings, and photographies had been pasted, paper-clipped, and stapled to the pages. Fortunes from fortune cookies, ticket stubs. In the upper right-hand corner of a page crowded with sketches was a drawing of a castle being struck by lightning. Finn pointed to it.
Okay, now I believe.
Finn climbed back up the fire rope to his bedroom window. While below him, barely seen, Amanda waited for him, straddling his mother's mountain bike, which he'd loaned her. His mission was to get hold of his father's BlackBerry, to make sure his parents didn't worry about him or question where he'd gone, and to borrow his little sister's DS for Amanda, who didn't own one. He reached his parents' bedroom on tiptoe and quietly opened the door. His mother was snoring. His father lay on his side facing the window. The clock on his mother's end table read 4:08 a.m. He found his father's dresser in the dark and patted around, searching for his BlackBerry. On Saturdays, his father only took his phone if he went to an extended errand. Finn could only hope that his father had no such errands planned. If he did and looked for the phone, he wasn't going to find it. He returned to his mother's side of the bed and quietly turned the clock so it faced away from the bed, where it couldn't be read by his mother. Then he gently shook her awake. She was a heavy sleeper, and he was counting on her not coming fully awake.
Mom.
Her eyes squinted open, saw him, and then shut again.
It's just after 6. I'm going on my bike over to the skate park. Might go to Blizzard Beach later. I'll call.
Don't forget sunscreen.
She opened her eyes a little more and looked for the clock, but she made no effort to turn it around. This he'd been counting on.
I'll call.
There was precedent here. Early Saturday morning rides at the skate park were part of his routine. Bikes weren't allowed in the half-pipe after 9 p.m. on weekends. He often got up early and returned for a late breakfast. By adding the bit about Blizzard Beach, a favorite among his friends, he bought himself the rest of the day.
Take your father's phone.
Okay.
He put away the fire escape rope and left the house by the back door, joining Amanda and climbing onto his bike.
How'd it go?
Worked out great. I'm good to go for the rest of the day.
Your parents let you leave the house at 4 in the morning?
Not exactly, but we're cool.
Had he looked overhead, he might have felt otherwise. Hanging upside down from the gutter of his house, the large bat with blue tint on its wings dropped free and flew away. Flapping frantically, it circled just above the two bikes as they sped off down the empty street, red safety lights flashing in the dark.